If you hear a rotor before the pilots do, keep your head down, Cole Bennett used to tell himself, and for 8 years, that rule had kept food in his fridge, gas in his old Ford, and his daughter safe in the small rented house, where he still cut her grilled cheese into neat triangles every morning before school. At 6:40 a.m., he had packed Maddie's inhaler in the front pocket of her backpack, signed her math club form, and wiped jelly off her cheek with the corner of a dish towel while she talked too fast about a summer STEM program he had already told her they couldn't afford. By 8:15, he was on the rooftop helipad of Cross Ventures Tower, pushing a mop through a thin rainbow smear of hydraulic fluid, while men in tailored suits admired a helicopter polished bright enough to reflect the skyline. Cole kept his eyes down, but he listened. He always listened. The sales team was smiling. The investors were nodding. Cameras were ready. And above the city wind, beneath the polite laughter and expensive shoes scraping concrete, he heard it, that faint, uneven pulse in the rotor system, small enough for most people to miss, wrong enough to make the muscles in his back go tight. He stopped mopping, just for a second, just long enough to look up at the aircraft, then at the left skid support, then at the woman walking toward the center of the rooftop, like she owned the weather itself. Vivian Cross did own everything else. She was tall, precise, and controlled in the way people became when no one had told them no in a very long time. Her white coat snapped once in the wind as she addressed the investors, her voice clean and sharp as glass. "What you're looking at," she said, touching the helicopter's frame with one hand, "is the future of private emergency response." Cole should have stayed quiet. He knew that. Men like him stayed employed by being invisible. But then the engine pitch shifted again, and this time he knew with absolute certainty that if that bird lifted too fast, something would go wrong. "Ma'am," he said, louder than he meant to. Heads turned. Vivian turned last. Her eyes traveled from his mop to his work boots to the name patch on his janitor's shirt. That helicopter shouldn't leave the pad until someone checks the left side damper assembly. For one beat, nobody moved. Then a few people smiled, thinking it was a joke. Vivian did not smile. She looked at him like he had spilled something on a contract. "And what exactly?" she asked, her voice low enough to make everyone lean in. "Would a janitor know about flying a helicopter?" Cole swallowed. The city wind pushed cold against his neck. "Enough to know I wouldn't put people in it yet." That did it. Laughter rolled through the rooftop, light and cruel and easy. Vivian's mouth curved, but there was no warmth in it. "Well," she said, glancing at the investors, "if the janitor thinks he knows better than my pilots, maybe he should fly this helicopter himself." Another laugh, bigger this time. Then she stepped closer, close enough for him to catch the clean scent of rain on wool and expensive perfume, and said the line that would follow him like a siren for the rest of the day. "Fly this helicopter," Vivian Cross said, "and I'll marry you." The laughter did not end when Vivian Cross turned away. It followed Cole Bennett across the rooftop in little sharp bursts, slipping between polished dress shoes and the hum of investor chatter while he lowered his eyes, gripped the mop handle, and went back to work as if his face was not burning. That was the first rule of survival in places like Cross Ventures. Do the job. Keep your head down. Never give people a second chance to enjoy your humiliation. He pushed the rainbow sheen of fluid toward the drain, slow and careful, while the helicopter gleamed 10 feet away like a machine built for men with titles on glass doors. By noon, the story had already spread through 3 floors of the building. The janitor who thought he could outfly trained pilots. The single dad who almost talked himself out of a paycheck. Cole heard the whispers in elevators, in break rooms, in the pause before people remembered he was still in the hall. He said nothing. Silence had carried him farther than pride ever had. At 3:15, his phone buzzed in his pocket while he was replacing paper towels in the executive washroom. It was Maddie. He answered on the second ring. "Did you eat lunch?" he asked first, because that was always his first question. His daughter let out the small sigh of a 12-year-old who thought her father worried too much. "Yes, Dad. I ate. But Ms. Harper says you need to call her back before 5. Cole closed the dispenser slowly. "About what?" There was a pause, and when Maddie spoke again, her voice had gone careful. "Grandma Lorraine sent another lawyer. They are saying your work schedule is unstable, and if the summer program accepts me, maybe I should live with her where things are more secure." For a moment, the room went very still. Cole looked at his reflection in the mirror. Blue janitor shirt, Name patch over the chest. Hands rough from solvents and rope burns that had never fully faded. You are not going anywhere you do not want to go, he said. Do you hear me? I hear you, Maddie said softly. But you need to call before 5. After the call ended, he stayed there a few seconds longer than he should have. One hand braced against the counter, breathing through the old pressure in his chest that always came when someone threatened to take the last good thing in his life and call it legal. Then he straightened, picked up the fresh paper stock, and returned to work. At 4:10, when he stepped back onto the rooftop for the evening cleanup, the helicopter was still there, shining in the sun, and the same wrong sound was still hiding underneath the engine tests like a secret no one important wanted to hear. At 4:30, the rooftop had emptied of investors, but not of tension. The city was turning gold around the edges, and the helicopter still sat on the pad like a polished lie. Cole Bennett wheeled his cleaning cart past the safety cones and listened again. There it was. Faint. Irregular. A small shudder buried under the test cycle, the kind of sound most people would miss and the kind he had spent years teaching himself to forget. He should have walked away. Instead, he crouched near the left side of the aircraft, eyes moving from the skid support to the damper housing, then to a fresh scrape near the lower bracket that had not been there that morning. It was slight, almost nothing, but it told a full story. Something had bumped it. Not enough to cancel a demo automatically. Enough to become dangerous under load. You are either brave or unemployed. The voice came from behind him, cool and controlled. Cole stood too fast and turned. Vivian Cross was watching him from 10 feet away, one hand tucked into the pocket of her coat, the other holding a tablet. She was not smiling now. I am trying to save you from a bad decision, he said. Her eyes narrowed. That is an interesting sentence from a man whose employee file says he has been mopping floors for 8 years. She stepped closer and tilted the tablet slightly. Security footage was paused on the screen. It showed him from that morning, head angled toward the rotor, gaze fixed in the exact place the problem lived. Most people panic from the noise, she said. You listened to it. Cole said nothing. Vivian watched him in the silence, studying his face the way she probably studied contracts and balance sheets, looking for the line that proved she was right. Then I checked your personnel history, she continued. Nothing before Cross Ventures except sealed contractor records and a relocation file that took legal 3 hours to access and still told me almost nothing. A gust of wind lifted a loose strand of her dark hair, but her voice remained even. Who are you, Mr. Bennett? He looked at the helicopter, not at her. A janitor with good hearing. She almost laughed, but the sound never fully arrived. Somewhere below them, a phone chimed from his pocket. He glanced at the message and felt his stomach tighten. It was from Maddie. Grandma Lorraine is at school asking questions again. Cole locked his screen without answering. Vivian noticed. Of course she noticed. You have a daughter, she said quietly. That makes this simpler, not harder. If you know something, say it now. Cole met her eyes at last. I already did this morning. For the first time since she had humiliated him, something shifted in her expression. Not softness, not apology, something more dangerous. Doubt. And once doubt entered a woman like Vivian Cross, it never came alone. The next morning, the rooftop was colder, the sky washed pale over Manhattan, and Cross Ventures was already moving at the speed of money. Cole Bennett arrived before sunrise, same as always, coffee in a paper cup, work gloves in his back pocket, and the same wrong feeling sitting low in his chest. He had barely slept. Maddie had finally texted him back at 10 the night before, saying Grandma Lorraine left the school but would be back with papers soon. That was all. No heart emoji. No joke about cafeteria pizza. Just that one careful sentence that told him his daughter was trying not to scare him. By 7:15, the helicopter was being prepped again for a private rooftop demonstration, this time with a charity board member, a camera crew, and a 10-year-old boy whose mother had donated enough money to put his smile on 3 hospital walls downstairs. Cole saw the child first. Bright red sneakers. Navy jacket too thin for the wind. He looked small beside the aircraft. Too small. Cole stopped at the edge of the pad and watched a forklift back away from the left side of the helicopter. The driver looked annoyed. One of the wheel guards had a fresh streak of paint on it. Cole looked down. Another scrape had appeared near the skid support, brighter than the one from yesterday. That settled it. He crossed the pad fast enough for 2 mechanics to look up. Do not put that kid on this helicopter, he said. Wes Dalton turned from the checklist tablet with instant irritation. Why are you even up here? Cole pointed to the bracket. Because somebody clipped the support and your vibration problem is worse today, not better. Wes glanced once, then shrugged with the confidence of a man who had a deadline and preferred it over doubt. The inspection cleared. Then your inspection was lazy. That landed badly. Heads turned. A few feet away, Vivian Cross stepped out onto the pad in a charcoal coat, her expression already sharpened by the schedule. What is happening now? Wes answered before Cole could. Your janitor is trying to ground the aircraft again. Vivian looked from Wes to Cole to the smiling child waiting with his mother near the camera line. Her face hardened. Mr. Bennett, this ends today. Cole did not lower his voice. If that aircraft lifts with a fast collective pull, you are going to have a problem in front of a child and half your donors. The wind snapped across the rooftop. Vivian walked toward him slowly, every eye on her now. You were warned yesterday. And you should have listened yesterday. That did it. Her jaw tightened, but her tone stayed icy and clean. Escort him off the pad. Security started forward. Cole took one step back, then stopped. He looked at Vivian, then at the boy in the red sneakers, and said the one sentence that silenced even the camera crew. If you force this launch, you are gambling with a child so your company does not look embarrassed. Security had just reached Cole Bennett when the first alarm chirped from the cockpit. It was soft, almost polite, the kind of sound people ignored when pride was still in charge. Then the helicopter shivered. Not visibly at first, but enough for Cole to see the change in the landing strut and enough for the pilot inside to stop smiling. The little boy in red sneakers had already been helped into the rear seat for the charity photo, and his mother was waving from the rope line, still believing this was just another polished moment in a polished company. Wes Dalton swore under his breath and spoke into his headset. One mechanic ran forward, then stopped when the rotor speed shifted unevenly. Vivian Cross turned so fast that her coat snapped in the wind. Shut it down, she ordered. But the command came a few seconds too late. The pilot tried to stabilize the aircraft, then called out that the side door had jammed and the vibration was getting worse with the added load. The smile vanished from every face on the rooftop. Investors stepped back. Camera operators lowered their rigs. The little boy inside the helicopter was no longer a photo opportunity. He was a child in a machine no one trusted. Cole did not wait for permission. He pulled free from security, crossed the pad, and looked straight at the cockpit, reading the movement, the angle, the pressure, the way some men read a lie before it is spoken. Do not pull collective too fast, he shouted. You will make it worse. The pilot hesitated. Wes barked something useless into the radio. Vivian looked from the aircraft to Cole, and for the first time since she had mocked him, there was no superiority left in her face. Only fear and calculation, colliding at the same speed. Can you get them down? She asked. It was not loud, but everyone heard it. Cole looked at the trapped child, at the jammed door, at the machine, shaking harder with every second. Then he looked at Vivian. You do not need a janitor right now, he said quietly. You need someone who knows what this helicopter is about to do. Her lips parted, but no answer came. He stepped closer, voice flat and steady. Move. Nobody laughed this time. Vivian took one step back, then another. Cole climbed in with the calm of a man returning to a language he had never really forgotten, and as his hands moved across switches and controls with terrifying familiarity, the entire rooftop understood the truth at once. The quiet single father they had been humiliating was never just a janitor at all. Cole Bennett did not rush, and that was the first thing that frightened Vivian Cross. Men pretending to be heroes moved fast. Men who had done this for real moved with a kind of silence that made everyone else step back without being told. He settled into the cockpit, scanned the panel once, and his voice changed. It lost the careful softness he used with Maddie and became clipped, precise, almost cold. Keep the pad clear. Nobody crowds the left side. And somebody get that child's mother back behind the line. Wes Dalton stared at him like he was watching a ghost borrow a janitor's body. The pilot in the right seat looked rattled enough to argue, but one look at Cole's hands on the controls ended that. Those were not the hands of a man guessing. Those were the hands of a man who had trusted his life to instruments more than once. Cole listened to the vibration for 2 seconds, adjusted the throttle input, and spoke without turning his head. Door is jammed under torsion. If we force it now, it sticks harder. We lighten the stress first. The little boy in the back had gone pale, but he was not crying. Cole glanced over his shoulder, and his voice softened just a fraction. Hey, buddy. I need you to keep your hands in your lap for me. All right. The child nodded. Outside, the rooftop had gone completely still. Even the donors had stopped whispering. Vivian stood near the safety line, one hand pressed against the front of her coat, as if she could hold her heartbeat in place by force. Then a new voice cut across the tension. I know that voice. Everyone turned. An older man in a weathered field jacket had just stepped out of the freight elevator, his face gone white with recognition. Ray Mercer walked 3 steps forward and stared at the cockpit. That is Cole Bennett? He asked, but he was not really asking. He was remembering. Wes frowned. You know him? Ray let out one stunned breath. Know him? 10 years ago, people in the Rockies used to pray this man was the one answering the rescue call. Vivian looked at Ray, then back at Cole, and something in her expression broke open. Ray did not stop. He pulled families off cliffs in weather that grounded half the state. They used to call him when nobody else could get in. He lowered his voice, but on that silent rooftop, everyone still heard him. They called him the man who could hear a helicopter before it failed. Vivian's eyes went back to Cole's face just as he steadied the aircraft with one clean correction, and in that exact second, the truth hit her with more force than humiliation ever had. She had not mocked an overreaching janitor. She had mocked the only man on that roof who had seen disaster coming before it started. The helicopter steadied under Cole Bennett's hands by inches, not miracles, and somehow that made the whole thing feel even more unreal. He was not performing. He was solving. Every movement was measured, every correction small enough to keep the damage side from loading too hard, and every person on that rooftop understood now that the line between control and catastrophe had been thinner than any of them wanted to admit. Wes, Cole said without looking up, who signed off on the support check after the forklift strike. The question hit the air like a blade. Wes Dalton's face changed before he spoke, and that was answer enough. There was no strike, Wes snapped. Ray Mercer laughed once under his breath, without humor. Then why is there fresh paint transfer on the bracket? Vivian turned slowly toward Wes. What is he talking about? Wes opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. It was a light bump. The inspection team said it was cosmetic. Cole's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. Cosmetic becomes structural when you add load and rush the climb because donors are watching. The little boy in the back seat looked. From one adult to another, old enough now to know something serious had almost happened. Cole glanced back at him. You are doing great, buddy. Just keep looking at me. The child nodded, eyes wide. Then Cole's phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. Once, twice, 3 times. He ignored it until the 4th vibration came with the emergency tone he had set only for Maddie. Something inside him dropped. He handed the cyclic for 1 second to the recovering pilot, pulled the phone halfway free, and saw a text on the screen from his daughter's school counselor. Your daughter has been picked up early. Grandmother presented temporary family court paperwork. Maddie is asking for you. Cole went still in a way that had nothing to do with the helicopter. Vivian saw it at once. What happened? She asked. He did not answer immediately. Outside the cockpit glass, the whole city glittered like nothing fragile could ever happen in it. Inside, his world had just split in two. Save the people in front of him, or run downstairs and try to stop the one thing he feared most. His daughter being taken out of his life by people with cleaner records, deeper pockets, and no idea what it had cost him to keep her safe. He closed his eyes for 1 beat, then opened them again. My daughter needs me, he said quietly. Vivian's face changed. Then go. Cole looked at the child trapped behind the jammed door, then at the unstable aircraft, then back at his phone. If I go now, he said, this does not get finished right. For the first time, Vivian Cross sounded nothing like a chief executive officer. She sounded like a woman standing in the ruins of her own arrogance. Cole, she said softly, what do you need? He swallowed once, hard, and put the phone away. I need 5 more minutes, he said. And I need you to pray my daughter understands why I stayed. 5 minutes, Vivian Cross repeated, as if saying it out loud might buy him more than time. Cole Bennett did not answer. He was already back inside the machine, back inside the narrow, disciplined part of himself he had buried under mops, supply closets, and quiet apologies to a daughter who deserved more than a father afraid of his own past. On my mark, Ease the load from the left side, he told the pilot. Not fast. Smooth. His voice carried across the rooftop through the open cockpit, steady enough to calm people who did not even understand the words. The pilot obeyed. Cole adjusted, listened, corrected. The damaged bracket groaned once, then settled as the aircraft shifted just enough for the pressure on the jammed door to release. Now, he said. A mechanic reached in from the side. The latch gave. The little boy in the back seat was pulled free and into his mother's arms, and a sound moved through the rooftop that was not cheering exactly, not yet. It was relief, trying to remember how to breathe. Cole kept working until the helicopter was fully stable and safely shut down. Only then did he let go of the controls. His hands stayed where they were for half a second longer than they needed to, as if the past had reached up through metal and vibration and wrapped around his wrists again. When he stepped out, no one looked at him the way they had that morning. No one laughed. Wes Dalton started to speak, maybe to defend himself, maybe to lie one last time. But Vivian cut him off with a single glance sharp enough to end careers. Legal will want every report, every maintenance log, and every camera angle from the last 48 hours, she said. Then she turned to Cole. Go get your daughter. He did not waste a word. He ran for the elevator, still in janitor boots, shirt damp at the collar, heartbeat pounding harder now than it had in the cockpit. 23 minutes later, he pushed through the family court lobby doors and saw Maddie sitting on a wooden bench between her grandmother and a court assistant, her backpack in her lap, her shoulders too straight for a child her age. She stood the second she saw him. So did Lorraine, composed and expensive and already prepared to explain why stability mattered more than love. But Maddie looked past all of that and straight at her father's face, at the strain in it, the wind still in his clothes, the truth he had hidden for years now impossible to hide. You flew again, she whispered. Cole stopped in front of her, breathing hard. I stayed because there was a kid on board. Maddie's eyes filled, but she did not look angry. She looked older. Then I am glad you stayed, she said. But when this is over, Dad, you are finally going to tell me who you really are. The hearing did not end that afternoon. It paused, which in Cole Bennett's life felt more dangerous. Temporary custody stayed with him for now, but Lorraine's attorney asked for additional review, additional records, additional proof that a man with sealed files and a janitor's paycheck could offer a stable future to a gifted child. Cole signed what he was told to sign, answered what he was told to answer, and kept one hand on Maddie's shoulder the entire time, as if the law itself might try to slide her out from under his fingers if he blinked. By the time they stepped back into the cold city air, the sun was already sinking between the buildings. Maddie walked beside him in silence for half a block before she finally spoke. You were not just a pilot, were you? Cole looked ahead at the traffic, at the steam rising from a street grate, at the life he had built out of small routines and careful lies. No, he said. She nodded once, like some part of her had known that for years. Then why did you let everyone treat you like you were nothing? That question stayed with him all evening. It stayed with him when he made boxed macaroni and cheese, because it was all they had energy for. It stayed with him when Maddie fell asleep on the couch with her glasses still on. And it stayed with him when his phone lit up at 10:14 p.m. with a message from Vivian Cross asking only 3 words. Are you home? He did not answer right away, but she came anyway. She stood on his porch in a camel coat, hair pulled back, no boardroom in her voice this time, just fatigue and something far more unsettling. Humility. In her hand was a thick envelope. Legal opened the old contractor file connected to the maintenance chain, she said. The company that signed off on the helicopter damage this week has a parent firm. Cole took the envelope, already feeling the blood drain from his face. He did not need to ask. He knew from the way she was looking at him that this was not just business. Vivian's voice dropped. That same parent firm appears in the report tied to the delayed rescue flight the day your wife died. The night went still around them. Inside the house, Maddie shifted in her sleep. Cole stared at the envelope but did not open it. If he opened it, the life he had spent years shrinking into might be gone for good. If he did not, then the truth about his wife, about his silence, about the people who had shaped both, would stay buried one more night. Vivian looked at him and asked the question neither of them could escape anymore. If the truth costs you the quiet life you built with your daughter, do you still go after it? And if you were Maddie, would you want a father who stayed safe, or one who finally tore the whole lie apart no matter what came next?